Hello and welcome back, and that is right, I want to talk about a brand new switch from Asustor. That's right, Asustor have now made the tippy-toe movement into the world of their own network switches. They're not the first to do that, of course. Other brands have done it before. Netgear have done it, QNAP have done it, and Asustor's first entry into the world of network switches, I've got to be honest, is going to be met with both good and bad reactions. The good side, let's face it, it is a 2.5Gbe switch there, and again, for those that aren't aware, 2.5Gbe use the same physical architecture as the standard network interfaces of all the devices in your home, but with the added benefit that it's 2.5 times the usual bandwidth. So instead of 1 gigabit Ethernet, which is 100 to 109 megabytes per second, you have got 2.5Gbe, which is around 250 to 270 odd megabytes per second bandwidth to play with. This 5-port unmanaged switch will allow you to upgrade the connections of your client devices, at least within the network themselves, to 2.5 times their original bandwidth. But it's worth bearing in mind that 2.5Gbe isn't just a case of just bunging this switch into the middle of your home or office, dusting off your hands and walking away. It really isn't. You need to upgrade your other devices, of course, and 2.5Gbe over the last, couple of years has served as actually quite an approachable middle ground to businesses that are finding 1 gigabit Ethernet networks in their home or business environment a little bit limiting, but not really seeing the kind of return on investment of going all the way up to 10 gigabit Ethernet there at 10 times the bandwidth there, but of course the price tag scaling up quite noticeably as well. So a lot of devices, from motherboards to routers to network attached storage devices and switches, have arrived on the scene that instead of arriving with standard 1 gigabit Ethernet, have started arriving at the same price as 1 gigabit with 2.5 gigabit. So again, this switch allows you to take advantage of a number of those devices in your hardware environment, the client devices that you're going to be upgrading soon or have already upgraded that have got 2.5Gbe switches available there. This switch will allow you to take advantage of them. Add to that the fact that Asustor have their very own $20, $30 adapter that connects PCs, Macs, Linux devices, network attached storage devices, a myriad of devices indeed, allow you to use a USB port on those devices and add a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port there. So again, no mucking around with PCIe upgrade cards, none of that lark, just USB device and bang, there you go. You've got 2.5 times your Ethernet there. So again, great stuff. Also this device, this 5-port switch there with all 5 ports being 2.5Gbe, also is silent. It's got no fan inside, it just sets up and sits there quietly and does its own thing. And again, as it's unmanaged, it's completely plug and play. The PSU for the device is built into the plug, not internally, and it's a 10 watt maximum use. So again, practically no upscale in your kind of power consumption there, and heat generation being very, very low means this is just going to sit there and do its job in the background without mucking around there. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen a 5-port 2.5Gbe switch arrive on the scene. Indeed, it's not the first time we've seen a 2.5Gbe 5-port unmanaged switch arriving from a NAS brand. QNAP released a switch like this around about a year ago, and although their switch does have a few tiny differences there, they are quite similar. So again, we'll talk about that in a bit, about how these two switches compare, because let's be honest, if you have been looking at upgrading to 2.5Gbe, and I'll be honest, starting to lose, those words have almost completely lost meaning at this point in the video, then it's worth highlighting that it's not all going to be good. And indeed, the Asustor Switch and Store, which is a name I'm not hugely in love with, so I'm just going to call it the ASW205T, which weirdly I find more appealing, which says more about me than them. This is going to have a few of the other barriers that people need to bear in mind about. First and foremost, a lot of people, although a lot of motherboards and a lot of routers and indeed NAS devices have arrived on the scene with 2.5Gbe, although it's being priced at 1 gigabit Ethernet, this has not translated over to switches yet. And indeed, this 5-port switch is listed on their own accessory website for $129 for this 5-port unmanaged switch. Now, you might be thinking, well, 5-port switch, that seems like a reasonable sum. Well, if you look at most 5-port 1 gigabit Ethernet switches, they knock around for about $15 to $25. This switch is $100 more than even Netgear's own 1 gigabit Ethernet unmanaged switch. And yes, this is 2.5 times the bandwidth. But that's a big price increase given that the rest of hardware clients that have started embracing 2.5Gbe have either not increased at all over 1 gigabit Ethernet alternatives or have just increased a smidgen. So this device, again, it's priced a lot more on its uniqueness. QNAP's own offering arrives at around about $119 to $129 as well. So this is very much the price point here. Now, whether this is going to change as this kind of hardware becomes more readily available, I'm not sure. I do think Asustor and indeed QNAP have priced things a little bit too highly for this for my reckoning. I know they're pricing it based on its rarity as it stands in the market, but you can get 10Gbe and 1Gbe combo switches that are unmanaged for about $150 to $180. So this still seems quite an expensive device for what you're getting there. On top of that, it's worth highlighting that, again, if you want to upscale the rest of your network environment, that it isn't just going to be the switch. You're going to have to scale up those other devices. And yes, you've got $20, $30 adapters and indeed $20, $30 PCIe upgrades, but it's still going to cost a little bit more there. And then when you price up against 10Gbe and you think long term, 2, 5, 10 years down the line, then you might see a bit of value in scaling up to 10G early doors rather than going for 2.5Gbe, because you can still utilize pretty much the same cables, Cat5 or RJ45 copper cabling there, and a lot of these things are completely backwards compatible, so you can scale things gradually, one device as another, but still use the 1Gbe connections on your other devices. This is a good switch, and I do think there is an appeal out there for 2.5Gbe devices, so you can upscale most of the devices in your network very quickly, or even take advantage of failover support with using 2.5Gbe connections, or even just a single 2.5Gbe device knocking through 250 megs that could be shared by a few other 1G users. This is a good switch, and I would argue it's a good looking switch in my opinion. I've always liked the black and red aesthetic that Asustor have gone for a few times, and they were one of the earliest adopters of 2.5Gbe or 2.5G, which I'm sure someone in the comments is going to correct my usage of the E for Ethernet on the end there. And fair play to them. I'm surprised it took them this long to release this switch, and I genuinely look forward to seeing if this switch opens the door to a new range of switches alongside their other NAS devices. Now, there's a full link in the description over to NAS Compares, where we detail a lot more about the specs, jumbo frame support, and scale and stuff like that, so do check that out. And if you do want to learn more about this device, visit that link, or stay tuned where hopefully we'll have a review and full testing of this device very, very soon. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, click like. If you want to learn more, click subscribe, and of course take advantage of the free advice section over on NAS Compares, linked in the description. It's completely free. We don't charge anything for it. There's donation buttons, use them, ignore them, it's up to you. It's manned by two humans, me and Eddie the web guy. We answer your questions about network problems, storage problems, or helping you with the next big storage project you have in mind for your home or business. It might take us an extra day or so to answer your inquiries. We are two human beings, but we answer every one. I will see you next time.